Welcome to Teal Talk, a podcast brought to you by the Ohio Alliance to End Sexual Violence. That's OAESV for short. We're your hosts, Taylor
and Lori.
In each episode, we speak with professionals in the field to dive deep into the intersectional issues that affect survivors in Ohio.
Before we begin, we want to give a content warning that we will be discussing sexual violence and other issues that may be upsetting and triggering. If you need help, please feel free to call our resource line at 888-886-8388 during regular business hours or the Ohio Sexual Violence Helpline 24/7 at 844-644-6435. Please take care of yourself.
Hello, and welcome to our 10th episode of Teal Talk. I'm really excited about that. And to say Happy New Year. We have entered 2024, so I know the next month of my life is going to be me scratching out the 3 next to every single date until I finally get used to it. My name is Lori Hamami. I am the Resource and Communications Coordinator at OAESV. I don't know why I almost said the OAESV. I graduated from OSU and I just have that tick in my head, I guess. And my wonderful co-host at the OAESV is
Taylor Ucker-Lauderman, who went to Ohio University, and I would argue that is the Ohio University. Anyway, so yes, I'm Taylor Ucker-Lauderman. Pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm the Chief Engagement Officer at OAESV. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm with you though, Lori. I was just doing my bills last night and going ahead and getting into January, and I was like, and it begins. I am going to make this mistake so many times moving forward. But we're kind of like, in our little time shift right now, since we're recording in 2023 and everyone will hear us in 2024. So we're like in the future, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And so fitting with the beginning of the year, we are going to have our first episode of 2024, do a little reflection and a little looking forward. And so Lori wants me to say that we are here with our VIP VP of Operations, Shandra Ingram. Hey, Shandra.
Hi, I am so happy to be here and spend time with 2 of my favorite podcasters. So I'm excited to be at the OAESV podcast room.
Great. Well, let me tell everybody a little bit more about Shandra. So Shandra Ingram, she, her pronouns, is the Vice President of Operations here at OAESV. In this role, Shandra works collaboratively to develop comprehensive systems to improve overall agency administration, develop strategies to scale the agency to capacity, and increase revenue to ensure more effective programming is available and accessible statewide. Shandra has over 10 years of experience in organizational development, strategic leadership, program development and implementation, and operations management. Throughout her career, Shandra has provided culturally specific, trauma-informed training and technical assistance to organizations and systems centered in the harm reduction movement. She has held leadership roles in numerous community coalitions, task forces, and advisory boards, working towards systemic collaboration to enhance comprehensive responses to survivors. Currently, Shandra is the co-chair of Ohio's Women of Color Caucus, which includes advocating for the systemic change needed to create a trauma-informed and culturally responsive climate for all survivors and BIPOC staff. She received her dual master's degrees in criminal justice and psychology from the University of Alabama and a bachelor's degree in psychology from the same university. Shandra has an extensive presenter history at national, state, and local conferences and trainings, providing education to professionals on topics ranging from building sustainable nonprofits to strategies for supporting BIPOC leaders. Shandra is passionate about creating strategies to support people working in the anti-violence movement, as well as working to end relationship violence and sexual violence in our communities. Can we just take a second to reflect on Shandra's beautiful bio and all that she has done? Love it.
Yeah, I said VIP VP as a silly little joke, but then I heard you say double masters and I was like, yeah, VIP VP is very correct. So excited to have you with us, Shandra. So I don't know about anyone else, but New Year's Day, New Year's Eve is one of my favorite holidays. I love reflecting and taking stock of where I came from, we came from, and having a moment to think more about where we want to go. It feels hopeful and invigorating. And I love good old self-reflection. So I thought before we hop into the wins as an organization, we could each share a personal win from 2023. Who wants to go first?
I can hop on and go first if that feels good for everyone. It might not be a huge win for everybody else, but I officially started taking pickleball lessons. And if you do not know, pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the US. So I am encouraging all my family and friends to take pickleball lessons as well, mostly so I can have somebody to play with when I travel and when I'm in community with folks. So that has been really great. And I'm looking forward to, in 2024, continuing to take more classes and really getting out there and playing.
I love that. It's also inspiring me to be a little bit more active this year, Shandra. I can hop in next because mine is very related to this past weekend, which is, y'all, we made it through my baby's first year of life. I say that jokingly and also seriously because parenting is freaking hard. So anyways, it was very exciting. So that would definitely be my personal win for 2023.
Those are both huge things to be excited about and proud of. My personal win is also fitness related. So I picked up running again and ran my first long distance race since 2015. So it's been a hot minute, but I think it goes to show that just because you've lost touch with something you care about doesn't mean that you can't start back up again. So hopefully that inspires someone to pick up running, pickleball, or perhaps have a kid in 2024.
Choose wisely.
Congrats to both of you, right? Lori, I remember you telling me about this, and I'm glad you accomplished it. And Taylor, it is no small feat to keep any living thing alive for 12 months. So kudos to you, especially a baby who started walking before they hit 1 year old. So also like saving them from themselves is a big feat too. So congratulations.
I started running more too without even knowing it, Lori.
I love that. I'm like, I can't even keep plants alive. And I know people say that joke a lot, but I really mean it. I bought like 10 plants. All of them are not doing okay.
Lori, I'm with you. I only buy artificial plants now.
All right. So let's dive right into the bulk of our episode. So, Shandra, I'd love to open the floor to you.
I could probably talk about our wins for hours, but that won't fit into our podcast recording. So I just want to highlight some things that I am just tremendously proud of our team for accomplishing in 2023. I know you all talked to Jasmine about our housing program, but I cannot not start there, right? As a movement, we have been advocating for housing for sexual assault survivors for years now, right? We know that the domestic violence field does that really well, but we also know working in sexual assault that survivors need acute housing when something happens and they're in crisis mode. But we also know that a lot of survivors come to us as childhood survivors of sexual violence. And sometimes whenever they begin to process that, things happen and they need housing, supportive, safe housing too. So I've just been really proud of our meaningful access housing program that Jasmine and Nicole worked really hard on implementing in 2023. Jasmine just shared last week that to date, they have housed over 500 nights of shelter for survivors, for their family, for their loved pets, right? For dogs and cats and kittens. So I'm really, really proud of our agency for implementing that housing program. That also means that programs don't have to use their funding for that short shelter night stay, that they can access OAESV's funding for that too. So just really proud of that program for being implemented successfully and taking it to the new level. That's another arm of our coalition that we have added. So I'm excited about that. I have a running list, so stop me, but I could keep going.
The first year of doing anything is always I mean, you never know what to expect. And to see that it was a huge success is really exciting. So I'm clapping and cheering and dancing in my chair.
Me too, Lori. I'm like always clapping in my chair for everything that we have done. But yeah, the first year, like you said, could just be really difficult and took us a while to get it up and going. So I'm glad that we were able to develop and implement the program in less than 12 months. That's pretty great. I'm also excited to share that though they started just a little bit over a year ago, the great work that our statewide director of forensic nursing has been doing over the state and around the state. So Tammy has worked really closely with Forensic Nurse Networking and the Ohio chapter of the International Association of Forensic Nurses to really be able to provide support and training and technical assistance to nurses that are fighting the good fight and are providing sexual assault forensic exams to survivors around the state too. I think you both know that we have a shortage of nurses that are doing that, right? So it was really great to be able to add Tammy to our team and her expertise and her knowledge. This year, she's worked with hospitals in both Seneca and Clinton County that were really interested in restarting their programs. And so she's been providing training and technical assistance for them, which again is no small feat because that's a big undertaking. The bureaucracy that comes with hospitals and being able to say, hey, we want to provide these exams when survivors come in. We also want to have trained forensic nurses that can provide those exams. Every time I talk to Tammy, she's like in her car driving, going to another county, another hospital to provide training and technical assistance and talking them through how to not only implement a forensic program, but maintain a forensic program, which is the hardest part. So I've been really excited about the great work that Tammy's been doing and really focusing on rural communities, which is where we definitely need forensic nurses so that people don't have to travel whole county just to get to a hospital that might have a forensic nurse.
Let me plug here for our listeners. Our November episode was with Tammy. And so if you want to learn a little bit more about what she's been up to in that program that Shandra mentioned, please give that one a listen.
Thanks, Taylor. I'm going to kind of keep sharing. Speaking of working in our rural communities, we have a OVW rural grant, which allows us to solely and specifically focus on work in those rural counties in Ohio. And we know that people don't really fully grasp the amount of rural counties that we have in Ohio. And so this grant in particular allows us to help build sexual assault response teams or coordinated community response teams in these counties. These counties that we're working in specifically don't have rape crisis center coverage. I want to be very clear about that. And so that's why we are working in them. We are wanting to make sure that if a survivor presents at a hospital, that they still have comprehensive services that they would if there was a rape crisis center there. So really going in and working with community partners to say, hey, you might not have a rape crisis center. How can we help you become a rape crisis center if you are providing these services? And if you don't have capacity just yet, that's fine. How can we make sure you're connected with your hospital, your maybe domestic violence agency, your child advocacy center, your law enforcement, prosecutors? So Nicole Cass-Colvin has worked really hard on building those coordinated community response teams in those counties through our rural grant. And Shelby has worked really hard on providing advocacy to sexual assault survivors in those counties. And collectively, we have partnered with Story Center to be able to give survivors a safe space to connect with peers in their communities and really space to tell their stories in a meaningful way that's also liberating to them too. So that said, our first cohort launched with Story Center this year. And so they are working directly with survivors to create a digital story of their experience as sexual assault survivors so that they can have this if they want to share with their friends and family. And with their permission, we can share in communities so that we can talk about the need to have a rape crisis center in these communities because we know sexual assault is happening. So really excited and proud of the work that Shelby and Nicole have been doing in the rural communities and really excited to partner with Story Center because, again, they just provide a safe space for survivors to be able to tell their stories.
Well, you don't have to tell the co-host of a podcast the importance of storytelling and story sharing. So it's an amazing opportunity that we're able to give survivors to share their story in whatever way that looks like too. They don't all look the same.
Yeah. And I think like hearing you say that, Lori, reminds me that it's really an opportunity also that the survivors have given us and anyone who's willing to listen, because that's a really vulnerable space to be in, right? To like share your story. And I would say it's a privilege for those that are able to hear that reality, as hard as it might be to hear, you know?
Yeah. And I would say too, thinking about our movement, we need to center the voices of survivors. We cannot be in the room without survivors trying to create trainings and resources and services that we or our member agencies will provide without really centering the voices of survivors. So it's really important that we continue to do that, right? That's the very fabric of our movement, is making sure we're centering the voices of survivors so that we can be able to respond in a way that's meaningful to them as well. Speaking of centering the voices of survivors, one other thing that I'm really excited about is that our colleagues Emily and Shelby and Nicole have worked really hard and really relaunching our Survivor Empowerment Advisory Council. They spent a lot of time in 2022 talking to other coalitions that had kind of relaunched their programs or had an extensive and elaborate survival council. I know we talked to Arizona, definitely want to give credit where credit is due. That coalition, and Texas, their coalition as well helped us. And so we have had a survivor advisory council for years, but kind of dwindled down, right? We didn't have too much engagement, and we definitely did not have a lot of diversity at the table. So Emily and Nicole and Shelby worked really hard on creating policies and an application and creating an application process and really just some goals for the council as well. And so they have renamed it. It's no longer the Survivor Advocacy Council. It is the Survivor Empowerment and Advisory Council. And we relaunched it. We have a lot of survivors at the table. We are able to compensate them for their time and their talents and their expertise. Traditionally, they helped us with creating our public policy initiatives. So that's one thing they'll be working with Emily and Rosa directly on. But they also will be helping us to craft our programmatic initiatives. So we're excited for them to play a part in our strategic plan. We're excited for them to be helping us decide what trainings we might be able to offer our member agencies. Sometimes our member agencies will tell us they need these trainings, and then survivors might come in and say, hey, actually, I didn't have a great experience with the program because of this. Could you provide training to them? So we get the best of both worlds, right? We get to hear from survivors and our member agencies as we're thinking about 2024 and crafting our programmatic calendar for trainings. But really excited again to just be able to center the voices of survivors. They really should lead our work, and having the revamp of this council, we will have survivors leading our work. And I think that's great for us, and being able to also model that for our member agencies as well.
Yes, and being able to compensate them. I love that.
So I'm just going to stay on topic, right? I'm talking about rural counties, what we've been able to do. I'm talking about survivors. I want to back up and say that we've been able to help two programs in particular become qualified rape crisis centers. And it was through the great, phenomenal work of Nicole and Shelby. I think they went on a few road trips. I can just imagine them like stopping at the gas station, getting all their snacks and hitting the road and going to these counties and stopping at hotels. They always have the best stories about their hotel experiences. They've been going around talking to these programs, telling them about OAESV and our rural grant that we got. And two programs were like, hey, actually, we have been wanting to become a qualified rape crisis center. So glad you stopped in. With that, we've been able to provide state funding to qualify them, and they receive state funding. It's been Square One and TCN are the names of those programs. And so we've added 2 new programs to our map this year, which is always great and exciting. That means more services for survivors in those counties. And that means that they can use us as their training and technical assistance provider as well. So I cannot give enough kudos to Nicole and Shelby for making those connections, for talking about the work that we do, and for helping those programs really become a qualified rape crisis center. That's always the goal, is to get 88 counties with rape crisis center coverage. We aren't there yet, but we are on our way.
That is so awesome. It's always exciting to hear the many ways that this organization is growing, whether that be increasing rape crisis services across the state or increasing services in rural areas, or increasing the voices of survivors, or even just increasing the number of staff we have on our team. Every month it's like, oh my gosh, we're growing again, we're growing more. And there's just so many different ways we can grow, and I love to hear about it. I'm loving this conversation.
Me too, Lori. I love the aspect of intentional, sustainable growth, right? And speaking of, we are now a staff of 21 full-time employees. That's still actually really wild to me. I remember when I started in 2017, it was 6 of us. So 21 doesn't sound like a lot of employees when I'm talking to my friends and families, but yeah, I'm just really excited about our continued growth and more of us to do great work, right? That's out there. There have been some new funding streams that we've gotten this year that has been really exciting that I just want to chat about very quickly. So through Bloomberg, it's really through Johns Hopkins University Network of Practice grant, we have some funding, and that has allowed our prevention team, mostly Sarah, to enhance our Be the One campaign by creating a youth-led strategic plan. So she has been working tirelessly talking to youth and getting their opinions on what we should be doing in terms of how we can market prevention campaigns to young people and to everybody. So we got some cool swag that we were able to purchase for them on top of gift cards because we want to compensate them for their time too. That's been really great to hear about the great work that Sarah's been able to do through that funding. And then for the first time ever as well, we have funding through the Ohio State Bar Foundation for our advocacy and legal team. So we received that funding and looking forward in 2024 to having them create more trainings for personnel who work in the court systems, right? To make sure that they are trauma informed and survivor centered. That is a very convoluted system to work in, the legal system. And so we want to make sure that everybody that's in that system knows more about sexual violence and how to respond in a way that centers the voices of survivors and that's trauma informed, right? And that sometimes is different in how we respond to and work with maybe offenders in the system too. So excited that in 2024 we can be able to provide that training. So we have just been hitting the mark this year with new funding streams, and that has allowed us to grow and build capacity. So really excited about a few of those opportunities as well.
When you mentioned the swag for the teen focus groups, there is nothing I wouldn't have done for a t-shirt at the age of 11. Like every club I was in that gave t-shirts, I was like, I'm there. I also want to highlight that in the application process, Sarah received 843 applications. So mind-blowing. Young Ohioans care about ending sexual violence, and that number proves it.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Like, mind is still blown. Also, to your point, have every t-shirt from like all the clubs that I was in high school. So yes, I'm here for the good swag and blown away with the amount of feedback that we received for the applications. I was so excited to see that they took an interest in this. You know, sexual violence isn't something traditionally that people want to be a part of and talk about. So that was really exciting for sure, Lori.
It gives me hope, that the next generation is going to continue this movement long after we're old and gray.
Just paving the way for the next generation. I think one other win I want to highlight outside of the phenomenal trainings that our training department has put on and the resources that we've been able to create is that we also had the opportunity this year to go to the National Alliance in Sexual Violence National Advocacy Day. So not only did we go, myself, Rosa, and Emily, but we also invited some of our regional directors to go as well. So we had a lot of voices from Ohio, and we were able to talk to our national legislators about the importance of continuing to prioritize and fund sexual violence initiatives. And so we do that all the time, right, on a local and state level, but it was nice to be able to do that in Washington, D.C. as well. And then to be surrounded by other coalitions, right, that were there for the same reason. It just reminded me of like our advocacy day at a national level. And we to that point, we're always included and invited to be in the national conversations. And so that's exciting too. I think when I sometimes hear Ohio, we're not always at the top of the list with great things that we're doing in our state, but to know that for sexual assault and advocacy efforts, we are always the forethought. We're always the ones that the National Alliance is looking towards to model our public policy advocacy program afterwards is pretty exciting. And not to toot our own horn, but like toot, y'all.
This episode is one big horn toot, so I'm tooting right back, Shandra.
I will just say, gosh, one of the hurdles that we had to get over in 2023 is also realizing that public policy advocacy is really slow, right? It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, it's a journey. And so there are definitely some items that we wanted to get past, get introduced that we weren't able to, but just really excited to continue that work in 2024. I think would be remiss if I didn't honor that 2023 just in general was filled with some tragedy in our country and other countries that really bring home for a lot of us. And so really proud that in the midst of tragedy and losses and hardships, that we were able to wrap our arms around one another virtually and in person, support each other as colleagues, give each other grace as colleagues, and still be able to get some big wins in the midst of everything that was going on. So that's a shout out to our team too. We really walk the walk and talk the talk. We really enjoy supporting one another too in our times of need. So wanted to highlight that again. There was just a lot of things going on in 2023, but also we were able to give each other grace and work through it and still get some major things done. So that's a shout out to our OAESV staff for that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shandra. We pick up and we keep going, and we try to do that with love and care and acknowledgement of all the different things that might be going on. But ultimately, we do keep going. And, these horn toots are important because what that really means is that we are accomplishing our goals. We are moving more toward accomplishing our mission and providing that comprehensive care to survivors, to preventing sexual violence in the first place, and hoping to expand the level at which that prevention is happening. So yes, we're tooting our own horn, but our whole mission is about supporting other people and expanding the effects of the work that we're doing. So we know that the more successful we can be, the safer and healthier and happier the people in Ohio can be. And so that's ultimately what we're looking to do, right? So love that for us. Love that for Ohio. So can you say a little bit about kind of how we go about deciding what we're even going to do? Like what informs our programming decisions, our decision to, add, for example, the housing program?
Yeah, absolutely, Taylor. That's such a great question. Luckily for us, we don't make these decisions in a bubble, right? Our member agencies really inform our work because at the core of who we are a training technical assistance provider, and we are a membership agency. And so that means that we send surveys to our member agencies, really asking what should be our priorities for training and technical assistance and resources. And so we encourage them to fill that out so that then we can respond in a way that is meaningful to them. Another way is hearing from survivors, right? Our council that I talked about. We do have a advocacy and legal services arm at our coalition, and we do a bit of direct services with our housing programs too. So we are hearing from survivors day in and day out on what their needs are. And so we also inform our calendar based on the needs of survivors as well. And I would say another place that we are always looking at is our community partners that we work with really closely too. We don't do this work in a vacuum. We couldn't do this work in a vacuum. So we're also excited when we hear about our community partners and what initiatives they might have gaps in services in, and seeing how we can fill those gaps in services as well. So I would say our member agencies, absolutely. And that does not only include our rape crisis centers, right? Because we have a ton of members. We have universities, we have students, we have individuals, we have community partners, we have affiliate members. So hearing from them, getting their feedback, also hearing from survivors and getting their feedback. We take all that information in and then we prioritize it as it has come in, right? So we want to make sure that we're providing trainings and technical assistance and resources, but relevant, timely trainings, resources, and technical assistance based off the needs of our member agencies and the voices of survivors as well. So we get all that information and then we kind of sit down as a team and talk about how we can prioritize what we need to prioritize. And then that's how we decide to maybe build capacity at the coalition and or provide trainings and technical assistance. We also hear about the national needs too, right? And the needs of Ohio. I think our housing program was really developed based off of a national outcry of survivors saying, we need housing, we need safe housing. Sometimes domestic violence don't have capacity to house sexual assault survivors. That's okay. We can make initiatives to create that space and we can add that to our public policy priorities as well. So a combination of people and agencies and individuals that go into determining how we will then decide how we need to grow at the agency.
Absolutely. And I would add too, because something that was really impactful for me over this past year was our program visits. So over the course of 2022 and 2023, we were able to complete our program visits that we do every couple of years to the qualified rape crisis centers where assessments are done on the centers and they're able to tell us like what is going really well for them and what are some things that they want to work on and provide either on a more consistent basis or more effective or just new things that they really need. And so hearing directly from them in that capacity was very enlightening as well. And just the opportunity to go and visit the centers themselves in the physical space and meet the different staff members. So I think that was a really great opportunity for us to hear even more information about how the services are going and what's needed.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because it also makes me think about the regional meetings that we host on an annual basis too, and being in community. I feel like that's a more unofficial way for us to hear from our programs about what they need as well. I love that when our staff travels to meetings, they will try to pop into a program to see, what they have going on, to do a tour. And so it's also those beautiful, like unofficial ways, right? We're hearing from programs to those organic ways. We're kind of just popping in, right? We're in the area. We want to pop in. Do y'all need anything? We're bringing donuts or cookies just to say hello and tell them how much we appreciate them. And then that's when we're able to get those pockets of information that are really insightful and helpful too.
I want to add from the resource and communication side, I'm not fully immersed in the training world. I'm not hosting trainings, in rural communities. So I'm not hearing those conversations you're talking about, Shandra. But from my perspective, I can see how many people are downloading a specific resource or what social media post is quote unquote going viral for like OAESV standards. But, what post has like 200-300 likes or is being shared a lot? What other discussions happening in our comments sections? What topics and information people are really interested in?
And I just have to say, Lori, that is so important, right? Because we know that nowadays a lot of people get their news not from the Today Show, like me, myself, but right from like Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or some kind of social media platform. I think that, my friends that are really connected to social media, they get breaking news before I do, right? And I have all the news alerts on my phone. I'm such an old soul, but that's so important too, right? To be able to see what is landing with people on social media so that then we can take that information back and again, create resources and trainings based off the needs of people who might not even work at a rape crisis center, right? They might not be a member agency, but they are connected to us on social media. We can hear from them, right? And be able to respond as well. So kudos to our resources and communications team. Y'all do such a beautiful job of connecting our work to the virtual world as well.
Thank you. So now that we've spent so much time talking about all of our wins and the hurdles of 2023, I would love to shift a little more into this new and fresh, shiny year ahead of us. What kinds of things are popping up for you, Shandra, about places to grow or offerings that we've chatted about that seem exciting to you?
Oh gosh, I'm excited about a few different things in 2024. Where do I start? So one of the things that we have been hearing for the past few years from our member agencies is around providing support groups for male-identified survivors. Javon, who leads our Engaging Men initiatives, has gotten that question several times, has done a lot of research, right, to find programs that are providing those, whether it's in Ohio or outside of Ohio. And we finally feel ready to provide a training and resources on that topic. So in early 2024, I think we're partnering with Men's Healing Project to bring that training to Ohio. So we are excited to offer that to our rape crisis centers who have been asking, right, who've been wanting to start support groups for male-identified survivors. So I'm really excited to finally have that training and also a resource that will be able to help our programs with creating those and maintaining and sustaining those support groups as well, because it's a need, right? We know it's a need. We've gotten that question over the years. So being able to provide that, I think is going to be pretty great. And I'm excited about that opportunity. Yeah, I think I just have maybe like two more quickly. So speaking of housing, right, our Meaningful Access program allows us to provide short-term stays for survivors, but we received funding through the Office of Violence Against Women to be able to provide transitional housing for survivors. So again, Jasmine and Nicole are leading those efforts. That will be long-term housing for survivors in the hopes that during that long-term stay that they can find, economic stability so that then they can be able to provide that for themselves and their family. But this will be anywhere between 6 months to 2 years. We're hoping, if at all possible, that we'd be able to provide 2 years worth of free housing for survivors to really, again, give them time to get stable and find, economic security and freedom themselves. So really excited about our transitional housing program. I think it will also complement our short-term housing, our meaningful access housing as well. We might have survivors that are in that program that then qualify for transitional housing, and being able to roll them over into that program, I'm really, really excited about. With that program, we'll also be providing economic empowerment classes too. So excited about that opportunity as well. And then I think just internally, it is time for us to update our strategic plan. And so that is a process that we are going to be kicking off. I think that we have completed 95% of our current strategic plan, which I'm really proud of. And I'm excited to include some things that weren't included in that original plan, like housing and forensic nursing and more engaging men initiatives. So really excited to build on that internally, because that, right, will be like our guiding star too. I'm just really stoked about that because it keeps us honest. It keeps us honest to survivors and people in Ohio and our member agencies. So it keeps us accountable. So I'm excited about that as well.
I love that. Are there other things you're looking forward to in 2024 that you want to mention?
Two events that I am really looking forward to in 2024, and I hope to have as many listeners there as possible, is our annual Advocacy Day that will be at our State House on April 30th, 2024. I'm also excited to be having again in person our annual conference that will also be in the Columbus area, and that will be happening on June 25th through June 27th of 2024. So if you are listening and you want to come support and elevate your voice, we would love to have you taking part of both of those events.
And I would love to include that if you are more of a reader instead of a listener, or just want to compile this episode in physical form and have it at hand, ready to read at a moment's notice, stay tuned for our 2023 annual report. It's usually published sometime during April, so keep your eyes on oaesv.org/annual report for a copy of that. Well, this conversation was so much fun. I want to thank you again, Shandra, for joining us for our 10th episode, and hopefully we'll chat with you again for another episode, maybe our 20th, 30th, 40th.
Oh my gosh, I could literally hang out with y'all all day, every day. So please just add me as a co-host, bring me back, something. It's been fun.
I love that. Guest host. Great. Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Thanks for listening to Teal Talk. We hope you enjoyed our deep dive into intersectional issues affecting survivors in Ohio. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave us a 5-star rating and review, recommend us to a friend, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at OAESV and Twitter at Ohio Alliance ESV. If you'd like to learn more about us and the services we offer, sign up for our email list, or read a transcript of this episode, visit oaesv.org.
Want to share a comment or ask a question for a future episode? Just click on the link in the show notes to leave us a voicemail. And remember, we're here to help. Feel free to call our resource line at 888-886-8388 during regular business hours, or the Ohio Sexual Violence Helpline 24/7 at 844-644-6435. See you next time.